My origin story as a child is the Haunted Mansion.
That tracks. Hello and welcome to Outside the Fox, where we explore what's happening online and why it matters. I'm Kim Horcher.
And I'm Steve Flavin, filling in for AJ Patel.
So this week we are talking about digital content,
My
which
favorite topic.
This is digital content, Steve.
Basically.
What is it? Where does it live? Why does it matter? How does it affect how we learn and communicate? So many different things.
Yeah. Something that I thought was really interesting when we were doing research for this episode, there was an article that I came upon that was basically talking about, this sounds really boring, but about ad spend on digital content versus linear TV, and how the ad money that's being spent on so-called digital content is now larger than, it's 60% of the entire industry versus linear TV. But the component of the article that I thought was fascinating was how they defined digital content.
I want to hear how you define linear TV.
Yeah. Well, I guess like on a traditional TV channel is sort of how they're looking at it. And then what they classify as digital content, this was so interesting to me, is like they grouped Netflix and Hulu and like streaming content with social content like YouTube and TikTok, which from my perspective as a viewer, like those are totally different things.
They are. There's social content, there's digital content, there's streaming content, and then there's what my parents watch.
But I mean, fundamentally, a TV show that you watch on linear TV, I don't think that it's, from an episodic or like narrative or structural standpoint, it's not that different from what you might watch on Netflix or Hulu.
Do you know anyone, around your age or younger who buys cable? I don't.
I mean, there's a lot of existential dread around what they call cord cutters, but then there's the cord nevers, which are people like me, honestly. Like, I've never had a cable subscription in my life.
Why?
What's interesting is that I think from an industry standpoint, it's less about the actual content and more about the distribution mechanism that is the thing that gives them kind of existential dread and like where the ad money is going. I don't know. It feels like there's a generational divide of, where you're putting Netflix in the same bucket as YouTube.
I'd put Netflix in the same bucket as, like, let's say, AMC, Bravo,
Sure.
Cable. Maybe not HBO. Well, yeah, HBO. I would.
Although in a weird way, no, here's an anecdote. So I used to work in kids content. We would cast kids for our YouTube shows. As I was running those auditions, I would often ask them what they're watching, and they basically do conflate Netflix and YouTube, and, these younger viewers don't really differentiate. And it is kind of interesting how your Netflix show can live alongside, I don't know, X, Y, or Z influencer on TikTok, in terms of occupying your screen time.
I mean, on that note, I think they have different expectations for each one.
Sure.
Too, though. I mean, Netflix is going to be different than YouTube, always. Well,
Of
I mean,
course.
there may be some very high production quality YouTube videos, but for the most part, no, it's more personal.
What's interesting, though, is at the time that I was making this kids content was probably, I want to say like 7 or 8 years ago. Those kids are in college now. So that viewer behavior is normalized now in, as generations age into, the primary demographics for, a lot of these adult-driven TVs and, movies. Not saying it's good or bad. It's just interesting just to see how the tastes of an audience evolves over time.
Right. I mean, different market groups are going to have different market tastes. I think it's normal. We don't have to look at all these articles that are like, millennials are killing the diamond industry, or millennials are killing the traditional funeral industry. Maybe we don't want those. Maybe people just have different tastes, and it's okay.
So something interesting that's been happening in recent years, and I think a lot of this has to do with the emergence of short-form platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels, is long-form content is starting to catch on, and on YouTube is now the dominant form.
Oh, I know.
And including this podcast, like the podcast, YouTube is now the number one destination for listening to podcasts, which is kind of
It's
fascinating.
confusing to me as someone who really loves audio podcasts.
Right.
But sure.
But what's interesting is that early on, early YouTube sort of resembled TikTok in a way. It was a lot scrappier, more accessible. The videos were shorter. It used to be fairly common practice, a best practice that is like you want to keep your videos short to get people's attention. And now it's almost counterintuitive where, and a lot of it has to do because YouTube makes money based on watch time. Like keeping you glued to the screen is something that they're incentivized to do. But at the same time, it also makes sense just from a content creation standpoint that if you're going to have these other platforms where the object is to create short, snappy, bite-sized videos, you might as well lean in the opposite direction, on YouTube. And I was going to say similar platforms, but I don't really know. I guess Twitch. is,
But,
it was long
Twitch
form.
videos are like
3-4
hour long streams. It's
Yeah.
a different beast.
Well, that's long form, baby.
It really is.
But it is just kind of interesting how, even on these newer platforms, those tastes have changed. You see platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels increasing their time limits because they're finding out it's really hard to monetize short form content because people aren't watching it for very long. So, the object is to get you to consume, like the volume of the consumption, I guess, is like you're just like endlessly scrolling. And so
That's better for me.
I
can't keep it short.
If you want to dip in and out, it's a great little like bite-sized thing. I like them both. Certainly, I have my favorite YouTubers and long form videos that I like to watch. It is interesting where YouTube really is starting to encroach a little bit on Netflix because of just the amount of time that you spend with it. This might be a good point to start talking about the rise of second screen viewership, where you have something going on in the background and then you're also on some other device like your phone or your iPad.
I think it's okay to do at home. It makes me so crazy when it happens at the AMC.
I turn into a vigilante superhero when I'm at the movie theater and I see a phone screen. I will descend. Speaking of which, Blumhouse recently partnered with Meta to release an app called Movie Mate, and their first experience is with the upcoming Megan 2.0, the horror movie sequel that's coming out soon, May not be the first experience, actually. Just as I'm saying that,
It's a notable experience.
It's a notable experience. But I read a really interesting article. It was a movie journalist who watched a recent screening of the first Megan that was sort of like a promo for the next one, and got to test the Movie Mate experience. And the thing that was most striking about his observation was just how bad it was. Just on principle, the idea of taking your phone out during a movie is extremely disruptive and distracting. But the fact that it was just kind of like this bootleg chatbot that is just spouting out marketing stuff is like, buy tickets for Megan 2.0. Like, there was nothing wholesome or like worthwhile about it didn't add to the experience at all. It was completely distracting.
So you're supposed to use that app while you watch the movie?
That's theoretical, from what I understand, there's like key moments in the movie where you're supposed to like follow along or like also open up the app. But the thing that was notable about this article is nobody else was doing it. Like, he was the journalist that was there to to test it out, but like nobody in the regular audience was on board with it.
Well, people aren't second screening, marketing content for the thing they're watching. They're checking various maybe social or digital content, that's unrelated.
I mean, just as a cinephile myself, the prospect of doing a second screen in the movie theater is just anathema to anything that I would do as a moviegoer.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think when people do second screens, it's not because they love what they're watching. It's that they're a little bored with what they're watching.
Yeah. Well, that was the other observation of this journalist is like, actually, Megan is a pretty entertaining movie and it's not boring. I mean, you could make the debate whether it's a good or bad movie. That's subjective, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun.
I love Megan. Megan did nothing wrong.
Do you, when you're at home, do you find yourself sometimes on a second device when you're watching certain things?
So sometimes I watch Korean reality shows,
okay,
and I will go on my phone because I get a little bored. You know, sometimes this reality show is way too long, and I also feel I'm not missing anything that important. I'll do that.
I don't mind it for certain things. Last episode we were talking about cozy gaming. I mean, there's definitely like cozy shows like Planet Earth or like nature documentaries. I mean, ultimately it sort of puts the onus on the filmmakers, the content creators, to create content that holds your attention. I have a feeling you're a fan of the show Andor that just concluded.
I just did a 3-minute long TikTok video on it, actually, and speaking of long-form TikTok content.
I loved that show. I don't think there's a single moment of that show that didn't have me like enraptured. Like it just had me on the edge of my seat. I was not bored during a single moment. Certainly I'm guilty of like when I'm at home, I'll be watching something and, my attention dips and, I might check my email or something. But for the most part, if something has my attention, it's like I shouldn't want to check my device, So
people are going to go where their attention is. So if there's maybe a little lull, maybe they'll want to see what's going on TikTok or Reels or whatever.
Do you think that ever in the future there will be a second screen experience that justifies like that intentional behavior?
That isn't terrible? I don't know, because I think it's more like, I'm bored in this room. Let me open the door to another room.
Right. Something that came up recently, I'm working on a project outside of Mozilla involving the 80s and like the history of music videos. And so I've been doing like a deep dive, like rabbit hole in, just researching the emergence of MTV. And something that I thought was interesting is that a lot of like the parental criticism of music videos and MTV sounded a lot like what parents are saying nowadays about TikTok. And I thought that was interesting and like maybe discussion worthy.
That's a pattern in every generation. Going back, it's like the video games are rotting the kids' brains. The cartoons are rotting the kids' brains. The comic books are rotting the kids' brains. Let's make an authority that forces people to put morality in comic books. Like there's always this pearl clutching. I think it'll be forever.
It's funny how cyclical everything is in pop culture. And I wouldn't say that TikTok is the new MTV necessarily, although in some ways it is. I mean, certainly like...
It helps spread music.
Yeah, I mean, trending music, it's like it's a big deal in the music industry. Well, pivoting a little bit, I just wanted to say, so literally tomorrow is VidCon in Anaheim. I'm going to be there. Have you ever been to VidCon?
I have.
What do you think of VidCon?
I don't like VidCon.
You don't like VidCon?
It's not for me. Like, I understand it's definitely for its market. I'm not in that market. I went the year that Tana pulled TanaCon, and people were roasting in the sun, and everyone was confused, and some people were ripped off. There was lots of screaming, but that was separate from that. There's just a lot of screaming in general. I don't like loud noises. That's just me. It's not for me, and I'm not going back. I'm not going back, Steve.
That was an infamous year, though. So, like, what you got the whole 360 experience.
Yeah, it was so fun.
At least you didn't go to TanaCon.
Why? It's not for me. I was there for a work thing. I mean, I've been twice.
Okay.
Another year, I went, and I was like, all right, this is all right. Maybe I'm not as into these YouTubers as much as these people are into these YouTubers. Sure. But I had a fun time at a party, and it was overall okay. There were some smart people there talking about different digital strategy and, realities of working in digital, which is cool because I work in digital. But I think largely it's not for me, and I don't need to go back.
Okay, well, that's fair. I think this will probably be my sixth or seventh VidCon. Wow. So I've been to quite a few of them.
You love them.
I do. I feel like I learn something new every single time that I go. I do get it that it's like loud, and it is quite flabbergasting, especially like if you've never been to VidCon, to just see
all the running and screaming.
All the running and screaming, but it was also like the first time I experienced that is just kind of fascinating. It's one thing to like see influencers on YouTube and it's like, oh, it has 1 million views or they have 5 million subscribers or whatever. It's a big impressive number, but to like see that actualized in person where these people are celebrities, and I don't know, there's just something kind of interesting and eye-opening about that.
I think I know too many influencers personally to. I think the magic is gone.
Yeah, I mean,
I'll just say that.
That's fair. I mean, that entertainment industry will do that to you, regardless of what facet you work in. But the panels, I love going to the panels. I love listening to creators talk about, what's successful for them, and how they go about ideating, and how they make a living.
That is actually genuinely fascinating. It's just it's hard for me to get there with the other fad around it,
Sure. I do love that Disneyland's right across the street. So that's the one time a year that I go to Disneyland.
I'm bored, and then you're just on the Dumbo ride.
Yeah. Maybe not the Dumbo. Why did you go to the Dumbo ride? That's interesting.
Because that's the most iconic one that's always in the commercials.
I guess that's iconic. Yeah. But
what are you really jumping onto?
I don't know. I'm more of a haunted mansion kind of. I feel like my origin story as a child is the haunted mansion.
That tracks.
But but in any case, I'll probably be filming some content there. I might even do a little vlog, so stay tuned for that.
Well, if you see Steve, don't run and scream.
Don't run and scream. I will. I don't know. I don't know what I'll do. I'm not going to make any threats, but but I will be there. I will be there.
You'll be very thrown off in that moment.
Well, that's it for this episode. We really want to know, how have your viewing habits changed over the last 5 years? Let us know in the comments.
That's right. And subscribe to the channel, and be sure to download Firefox, because it's the best. We'll see you next time.